Did you ever wonder what goes on behind the scenes in museums, creating the displays and exhibits we all enjoy? Join us as we explore museums and their exhibits from the inside out. Hi, I'm Leslie Mueller. Welcome to Museum Access, the show that takes you to America's top museums to talk to the experts. Then we go behind the scenes to learn even more. We're in Volo, Illinois, at the Volo Auto Museum. This family-run museum has thrived under the leadership of 4 generations of the Graham family. There are over 400 collector automobiles on display, from vintage to modern classics, plus some familiar movie and TV cars, and that's only the beginning of this unusual museum. This 25-acre campus boasts over 33 unique exhibits, including historical house cars and covered wagon travel trailers that eventually led to modern-day campers and RVs. There's a carousel and music hall, an antique outboard motor exhibit, a breathtaking Titanic exhibit, a salute to the Armed Forces exhibit, and so much more. Today we'll go behind the scenes to learn more about just how these spectacular exhibits are created. We'll visit the private restoration area and meet a design team member whose job is truly mind-blowing. So are you ready for a most unusual museum adventure? Let's go. I have to admit, this is probably the most unusual museum that we've been to on Museum Access. This is so cool.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on out.
Well, I know it would take days to go through everything, but I'd like to backtrack a little bit, Brian.
Sure.
Let's talk about, how did this all start?
Well, it was just kind of something that happened. It was never planned out. My grandfather was a junker. He would go to garage sales, buy lamps, rewire them and sell it in a secondhand store. My dad and my uncle, they were into cars. They were teenagers. Sure. At nighttime after work, they would go to farm fields. They would pull cars out of the old muck and stuff out of the mud.
My gosh.
Take them back to the shed that we had here on site, which was a gravel floor, no plumbing, no heat. And they would go in there and they would just tinker with the cars. They were all junk. I mean, everything was junk that they collected. But that evolved. You know, the people started taking note that, hey, these guys have all these different cars.
Running?
Like,
I mean, were they
no,
running?
No, they were not running. They were rough. They were really rough.
Okay.
But one of the cars they had was a rare car, was a rare Chrysler, and somebody came in and said, you know, hey, we want to buy this from you. And I'm like, well, we're not in the business, it's just a hobby.
Yeah.
You made an offer that couldn't be refused.
Yeah,
so
forget the hobby.
That eventually, you know, hey, you know, maybe we should think of this as a business. So that started the collector car sales. And people started coming out wanting to just see the cars, weren't interested in buying them. So they started charging $1 admission, and it was weekends only. The bread and butter is the car sales. We sell about 1,200 cars every year, and we take that money and we reinvest it into the museum, buying new assets to display here. And we went from just cars, kind of led into the TV and movie cars, which started bringing other families in. Sure. And then we expanded from there. What are other interesting things that's kind of Americana, mechanical? So we started with kiddie rides, snowmobiles, RVs, campers, tractors. I mean, heck, we even got an old 1927 Carousel and street orchestras and stuff like that. So it became, you know, really a niche of all kinds of different, you know, items here. Definitely different interests, you know, whether you're a child, an adult, we try to have something for everybody.
Sure.
So the entire family can come here and have a good day.
Well, it's a historical journey. I mean, these are really artifacts.
Correct.
And when you think about it, you're learning about culture, obviously, pop culture in some cases, but just the history of transportation.
I mean, you'd be amazed the stories that I hear when people are coming through here. They're telling their youngins and that.
Oh, sure.
I saw a dad pointing out to their child inside one of the cars and said, that's where the term roll up your window came from. You know, kids nowadays, they flick a power button switch.
Yeah.
Well, that's not rolling up. So he showed them that's where the term roll up your window came from.
See?
And to me, it's like, that's not just common knowledge. And I'm like, you know, no, it's not.
Are there expansions in process, or where do you think this is going to go?
We will never be done. You know, we're always expanding, building. We just bought an additional like 40 acres of property adjacent to ours. that we're doing a tour on right now, where it'll be a mobile tour. They can hop on a trackless train and go through different things from Ice Age to steam locomotives to military, and it'll be this nice relaxing tour. You can sit down and let us do the work and take you around instead of walking through.
But educationally, it's great.
Educationally, it's great. We're telling people about the Vietnam War when you're on this tour, and about the old steam train, the Jupiter, and its importance and railroad history. And so we're both educational, but it's also entertaining. A lot of people will come here, they have a good time, they go home, and they don't even realize that they learned something.
Yes, and it may pop up into their mind later that we saw this.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I know we have quite an adventure today. Not only the automobiles, but the RVs.
I hope you brought comfortable shoes.
I sure did. Thanks, Brian.
Yep, thank you.
It's said that the best way to respect and honor those that went down with the Titanic is simply to tell their stories. The 5,000 square foot Titanic experience does just that. The collection of historical European luxury motor cars on view are worth the trip alone. But you can also experience the sloping decks of the ship's stern that reflects the angle of the ship as it broke in half before sinking. Or place your hand in the frigid water tank to see what the passengers of the Titanic experienced that tragic night. Talk about special exhibits. This is unbelievable. Where are we?
This is something we worked on for a long time. The meat and potatoes, as Brian was saying, is still the Auto Museum.
Sure.
We're one of the largest collection of collector cars in the world. But as we expand and we do all these other exhibits, like this Titanic exhibit, we still wanted to stay true to who we are, because sometimes you can get a little away from it and call back, hold on, this is still what we're known for and what we're world famous for. And we wanted to tie in the Titanic exhibit here with the auto side of it as well. So we're sitting in a one of one. This is a 1906 Peugeot. Model Ts are 1908, so this is around the time of Model T. This is French, this is from Europe, but at the same time these Model Ts were being mass produced, cars like this were being made, which is incredible. I mean, down to the style of these people. It wasn't just these horns are, it's a brass python serpent thing.
Yes,
it's serpent in there. So there's just so much style and grace and debonair in these cars, and they're incredible. So we really wanted to show off that era of the Titanic and not just talk about the ship, but the era was really incredible, and the fashion and the automobiles and really just the technological advances at that time. And some of the pieces are still tied in with the Titanic. So we have a 1912 Renault. There's only two ever made. It was a French prototype car with 6 fenders, and one was actually on the ship. It was the only car on the ship, and it was a rich person from America wanted to go to Europe and get something that no one else had seen and bring it back to show off his money. So this car was on the Titanic, and in the movie, when Jack and Rose get to know each other better, James Cameron recreated, and so that was in the car. It wasn't out like it was in the movie. It was in a crate being shipped, but that was the only car. It was one of the most valuable items on the Titanic. And the only other car in the world is its sister, and that's this car here. So it's incredible, and it's fully restored. This is an incredible car. The car to the left of us here is a 1912 Rolls Royce. And again, think about, now these were motor coaches. So this is like the horse and buggy, those carriages. This was the motor version of what you saw there. This was the horsepower, was an actual engine instead of horses. And then they migrate to this technology in the 1912, which is only a few years later. But this is a Rolls Royce. I mean, it's incredible. They have a full cabin. There's sliding doors, so you can talk to your driver, and it's fully enclosed. But it still had retractable, a retractable top.
How fast could they go?
Not very fast. I want to say 30 miles per hour-ish.
Wow.
But this is, it's immaculately kept, and each of these are insured for millions of dollars. The Heart of the Ocean in the movie, where Rose throws it off in the end, it was made up, but it was based off of the Hope Diamond, and the Hope Diamond was one of the the biggest pieces of jewelry at the time. And the woman that owned the Hope Diamond, we have one of her cars as well. And it's right around the same era. There's cars you'll never see anywhere else. We really loved the history and the stories and the beauty of these cars. And then just a couple decades later, you get into the Great Depression, and during that time, and we have Duesenbergs. Americans were getting so sick of all these Europeans making these incredible cars that they came up with the Duesenberg. At the time, this is the Great Depression time that they came out with these cars. You could have a choice of either buying 50 Model Ts, 5 houses, or 1 Duesenberg. That's like the price level of what these were.
5 houses?
5 houses or 1 Duesenberg. And they go to migrate from the 20s and 30s to those cars to now what we have in our collection. And there's hundreds of those from the 40s and 50s and 60s, and then you get into the muscle cars and everything else. So there's nothing like this. And kids that know nothing about them are just absolutely blown away by these vehicles. So we love to have these in our collections. It's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of work too. Putting these exhibits together, and it's not a big team. It's only a small team of mechanics and artists full-time on staff that help us restore or paint. And like these cars here, we didn't restore this one, but this is a hand-painted car. If you look on the back here, all of the stripes are hand-painted. It's just incredible. But when we restore the trains and a lot of the other things, we do restore those ourselves, and we spend years. Our founder Greg will sit with his wife Myra, and they'll, in the middle of winter, they'll put on a Dickies coat and they'll get in there, and they're a part of everything. So it's everything from the founders down to the restoration team, which is a very small team. Incredible.
Well, I know we're
going to
go behind the scenes.
And I can't wait. Yeah, show you some of the behind the stuff. So yeah, it's a small team that does all of this, but everybody from the founders down is a part of it, and we all have our blood, sweat, and tears in each one of these exhibits.
Step back in time at the Carousel and Music Hall and view a world-class collection of antique music machines that are a living tribute to early 20th century artistry and craftsmanship. The centerpiece of the space is the breathtaking Allen Herschel Carousel. It's adorned with intricate hand-carved wooden horses that are truly a sight to behold. So America is changing, and people are more mobile, and they're trying to get to different locations.
Yes.
Where does that leave the transportation industry?
It's the industry and the history. I think the story behind it is so fascinating because it started with covered wagons, and that's where our exhibit starts. It's called The Evolution of Travel Lodging. So it started back with covered wagons, and they were very uncomfortable, and most of the time you didn't really ride in them, maybe in the front, but it was more for carrying your stuff because you were traveling around. So that's really more, it wasn't lodging, it was more of storage and transporting your goods.
From A to B.
And then it evolved into the stagecoach and the horse and buggy. So now you can sit with your friend or your family, and most of your stuff was still inside, but you were able to transport your family and travel a little bit more comfortable, but you still, the term travel shotgun, that's literally what people were doing. They had to sit next to you with a shotgun because there were thieves and Indians and whatever other animals that could attack you or whatever. So when you sat next to them and you rode shotgun, that's because you were holding a shotgun protecting the driver while he was driving.
Oh my gosh.
And that's just fascinating to me. And
that
was,
that's cool.
This is not a fast means of transportation. So then it moved into the automobile right around the Model T. And when the Model T came out, we have one that shows, it was probably early teens, I want to say early teens Model T, and there's a little conversion kit. So if it was you personally or a couple that were going to go out on a date night or for a weekend, they had these little collapsible, it's actually, the ingenuity is incredible for the time. You could fold this whole thing out, pop it, you could have a little kitchen and a cookware, you could form the exhaust up on top, and you could steam and cook things. And they also had, when you flip up the top, they had a little shower head, so you could pump water through and shower yourself.
Wow,
so it's
very
really
modern.
It's really incredible for that time period.
Yeah, really.
Just like the cars, the evolution of how this happened was more or less they just wanted to go away for a weekend, and if they wanted to go out and there was no hotels and they couldn't afford it, they could do something like that. Then the Great Depression hit. And that's really when cars were starting to evolve to like a Model A. So the Model A was the next car, an evolution of the Model T car. This was a lot more, this was the next best thing, the next big thing that Henry Ford made. So he thought, okay, if people can't afford their homes, they still need to drive around and look for work from city to city, why don't we make these conversion kits? So this is an actual one. There's only 2 of these in the world. This is a conversion kit from a Model A, and if you look inside, it's pretty amazing. This is 1928, but you have a stove, you have a little kitchen, a bedroom. I mean, all the amenities, icebox, are all in here. But it wasn't until the necessity wave was settled, then luxury wave. There's people with money that are like, well, that's kind of cool. I think I want to drive around and do this. So he put out this whole media campaign of going out on vacation, get these luxury trailers, get your camper thing and go out and camp. It started with he needed to sell cars. He wasn't selling cars because of the Great Depression.
Right.
He come up with this idea, so now people can get rid of their houses. They're still buying cars and converting their cars because it's obviously cheaper,
Yep.
and they can go around looking for work. And then this next level, when you go to the 1930s, and I think this is a 34 and a 38, not even a decade later, this is full-blown luxury. That's a leather-wrapped trailer. Everything is inside. They have a phone that you can call the driver, but they want pit stop or better, so you're just sitting back
Whoa.
while most of the country's just eating apple cores and sitting on the curb.
Yeah.
You're rolling through in a martinis in this leather-wrapped trailer.
With the driver.
Calling your driver and saying, we need to make a pit stop here.
Oh, I
and
vote for
whatever.
that one.
So-
That's
right?
amazing.
And it's amazing too. These are 100 years old.
Wow.
And if you look inside, I mean, this is something that we could comfortably go in.
Oh, yeah.
And it's vintage, but there's a little bar, there's a setup, you know, it's all of the amenities outside of modern electronics are here, and it's incredibly beautiful to look at. And there's all of these
Functional,
here.
yeah.
They're all functional. And our exhibits, all of these are unrestored, 90% unrestored for the most part. So everything in it is the belongings, the floors, you'll see the wood above some of these, the mahogany that's
Just
lined, and
beautiful.
it's just unbelievable.
So what's the next step after the series that we see here?
So when you have the 20s and 30s,
Mm-hmm.
and after you get to these campers and these luxury trailers, then it starts getting to the bigger side, because there's a lot of bigger families. You can't fit a ton of people in here.
Yeah.
It gets pretty cozy
Good
pretty
point.
quick. So after the late 30s, early 40s, they started evolving to RVs. And there's a prototype right after World War II. There was a big Texas oil tycoon, and he had this concept for a RV, a recreational vehicle that the whole family could comfortably go in. And it wasn't just this little thing that you're driving. You could have a lot of space for the whole family and all of your stuff. And so we have a prototype 1949 RV, and they used it a couple times and heat passed, so it sat in the family's farm in like a barn until recently, until we got it. Untouched. So the family's toys, all of their belongings, their silverware, they have little roller skates, like the clip-on key roller skates.
yeah.
We have those, dolls and all that stuff. It's incredible. So it's basically like a time capsule, but that you can see the evolution of how it, you know, like same with boats, there's little fiberglass boats and they wanted bigger boats. They wanted to be out longer and do more
Sure,
things and bring more
sure.
people. So that's kind of how all of this evolved.
And it's amazing that here at your museum, you can go right up to them. I mean,
That's
stick your head in the window and
One of
really
the things
get a
I very much
close-up.
value about the Grams family is that it's family owned, and we really want to surround you with the environment and the experience.
Yeah.
So some people are going to walk through and they're going to say, I remember this, oh, my grandfather had this, we
Yeah,
went
yeah.
camping. And then there's some kids that have no idea. They don't
They just
about
think
any of
it's
this
cool.
stuff, but
Yeah.
it looks amazing and it's still
Yeah.
really cool. So you're getting these different generations that come through and not only see it, because most museums are look, don't touch.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel most of the stuff here, they spend an unnecessarily amount of money in keeping things running, keeping things working. The Moldoramas and animatronics and the kiddie rides and the arcades and all this stuff is you can listen to and hear and ride the carousels and really experience
Yes.
this Americana. And I
Yeah.
think my favorite part of this museum, there's millions of museums, but ours is really nostalgia based. And that's what I really value about the Grams family and why I love working here is it's so infectious. The founder could be off on an island, retired, but he's in his mid-70s, he lives on the property, he's here every day, working on stuff, excited about the new thing, and once that's done, he's excited about something else, and it's so infectious. And that passion of creating experiences and creating visual worlds for you to interact with, and that's most museums are look, don't touch. And what I really appreciate about the Grams family is they spend an insane amount of money unnecessarily for most museums, because you can walk by and visually it looks amazing, but you can play with it, hear it, listen to it, smell it, you know,
Yeah.
like experience it in a different way that either sparks nostalgia or education or wonder. Some you walk through, and even in my 40s, I can walk past this and I'm in wonder. I'm like, that's ingenuity, 100 years old. This is incredible. And these people really, you know, they were forward thinkers, and you can see why America was so great back then, because all of these technologies and inventions were just growing so fast, and
Yes.
as soon as one was done, the next thing was already on its
Yeah.
way. And they do a great job of not only presenting the era, preserving the history, because
Yeah.
I think that's what's really important for them, is that you're preserving history,
Sure.
but you don't want it to be boring. You know, Brian said that you want people to learn without even learning. They're
Yeah.
just going
Yeah.
through and
They don't
being in
even know they're
amazement.
learning.
And
Yeah.
then you hear the stories behind it and
Yeah.
how we acquired it and who used it and why it was important. And I think that's what makes this place special. It's completely different than any other museum I've ever been to.
very unusual museum, and I know the exhibits and everything have to be restorations, have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Is that where we are right now?
That's where we are right now.
Tell
This
me,
is
John.
the behind the scenes area where all our incoming stuff comes, and we go through it and do restoration on it and figure out where we're going to display it and how we're going to display it. And it all starts right here.
I mean,
Everything.
it's mind-boggling to me because you say it all starts here, but how we're going to do it, I mean, it could be a car, it
Yeah.
could be a dinosaur,
Yeah.
it could be an RV.
We've-
I mean, you have to do
You
it all?
name it. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We get movie cars that come in all beat up and we have to restore them, or we get artifacts, or sometimes we even build props from scratch, depending on what set we have, and it's never a dull. It's
And
fun.
mannequins
And
and
mannequins,
everything.
you name it.
Wow. Well, I'm seeing something down here that's kind of interesting. A beheaded guy.
Yeah.
And what is this?
That is a hand holding a grenade that's part of a soldier that it has not been attached yet. The guy's actually in the scene, but I haven't attached his hand yet.
So you're putting together body parts
Piecing
even.
everything, piecing
Oh
it all
my
together.
gosh.
Yeah.
So what have been the most challenging? So many. It's going to be hard to.
Probably the most challenging right now is the train, because we're pinstriping it and trying to get it back to original looking from the movie. It's actually been in several movies. I think the most recent one was The Lone Ranger with Johnny Depp.
Oh, wow. So do you have to do research when
Yeah.
you get
Oh,
a
yeah.
piece in? I mean, let's say
Constantly.
someone in the
Online.
family buys something and says, hey, good news, we found this. And then you're like, bad news, I have to figure out how to make an exhibit out of it.
You're right.
I mean,
I'm always like, oh, I got it, no problem. And then I'm like, oh boy, we got to do a lot of research and try to figure out, because we want it to be as close to perfect as possible.
yeah.
You
So
know,
are you
close to
looking
the
at
original.
pictures
Everything.
and you're researching
And
materials?
Yes.
Wow. John, I know we've seen everything from automobiles here to RVs to Titanic
Mm-hmm.
items. What's the biggest challenge? I would think mannequins would be tough also,
Oh,
wouldn't they? 'Cause
absolutely.
you-
Mannequins, most mannequins you see are department store mannequins, and they're made for,
Yeah.
displaying clothes and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like in the military building, I have to actually create them and use different pieces to do different poses and stuff, because they
Whoa.
can't just, they can't just stand there like they're in a store.
But how do you
displaying
create them?
clothes.
Are you getting different I mean, I saw this.
Yeah,
I mean,
what I'll do is look at pictures and sketch them out. Like, for instance, the guy with the radio.
Yeah.
And to make him sitting down, I find what pieces I have, legs or arms or hands, and
My God.
it's a little crazy, but I piece it together, and once it looks right, I attach it and mount it all together, and it comes to be. And if I don't like it, I'll change it, and I take input from everyone to see what they think, if they don't like it or what they think about it, and if it's good, then we'll go with it.
Well, and also, I'm sure you have a lot of people that come through the museum that are military experts
Oh, yeah.
or whatever.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
going
And
to spot something
if we do
that
anything
isn't-
wrong, they will point it out. So we try to be as historically accurate as possible.
Yes.
So it takes a lot of research, and as you get into it, it gets really, there are a lot of details that most people wouldn't notice, but like veterans and stuff, they'll come in and they'll notice it. So we
Wow.
try to do it as accurately as possible. We recently had someone bring in an old chest that was full of old papers and stuff from a veteran, and I went through it all, and I actually found his draft papers from World War II
Oh, wow.
that were the old carbon copy looking.
Yes.
And it was, I was just going through all these papers, and a lot of it's just personal stuff, has nothing to do with the military. And I found this, and I looked at it, I'm like, oh wow, look at this. This is rare. It's an actual original letter that he got, said that he was being drafted.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, we're gonna frame this and put it up. Really interesting.
That's so
We
cool.
have guns and weapons and stuff, but stuff like this is really personal, really
Yes.
interesting.
It's also really fragile.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure have to be aware of all
It's
the different types of
yes.
materials. So do you seal certain things?
Yes.
Or are there ways that you
Certain
can protect
paper
it?
and fabrics and stuff, we'll seal them in like plastic liners and stuff and put them so they display neatly, but they're safe and they'll
Yeah.
last a while.
So I noticed all the automobiles. Are they brought in here for restoration also?
Movie cars and stuff like that, yeah, we do that all in here. We kind of took this over. It was a maintenance shop for the property and everything. I kind of squeezed in and started taking over, and they allowed me to, because we need a space to do all this stuff. So
So you're hand painting and
Yep.
wow. I mean, they're beautiful. The collection is gorgeous. So congratulations
Well,
on a
thank
job
you.
well
I
done. I know
appreciate
you
it.
never know what you do when you come
Yeah,
in each day.
never do.
Right? Is it
Yeah.
like surprise?
it is. It really is. It's like, what's going to be here today,
Great job to have.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, never boring.
Yeah, you're not
Never
kidding.
boring.
Well, keep up the good work and thanks for sharing.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, was I right? This is one of the most unique museums we've ever visited. When they say even if you can't tell a spark plug from a carburetor, you'll find something to love at the Volo Auto Museum, they aren't kidding. Thanks for joining us on Museum Access, where every visit is an adventure. I'm Leslie Mueller. See you next time.